Is the voice audible to the online students? In case somebody is able to hear, you can just let us know. Okay, I think I can now see the screen. Okay. So a very good morning to all of you. A very warm welcome to Sunya IAS. This is going to be the first class on environment, and this is the foundation class. And I'll just also brief you how this foundation class is also very unique in the sense it's also very comprehensive. We touch upon all the major aspects that are related to the exam. Okay. And second, whatever problems that you face, okay, be it in terms of solving the questions. So not only environment. So all the subjects that we deal at Sunya in the foundation at a very comprehensive level. We start with the NCRTs, then we go into very comprehensive foundation classes. By the way, each class is followed by the MCQs. For example, in the very first class also, you will also see the practice of MCQs. After that, that is the level 2. And after that, we move into the prelims crash course. And then the fourth is the mains crash course. So again, the foundation classes are 4 layered. Okay. So whatever problems that you may face, we have already anticipated it. And then we have tried to give you a very holistic solution. The entire team is working very hard, and we'll also try to do the very same in environment as well. Okay. Now, here, because today is the first lecture, and this lecture is also there on YouTube, the people who are watching this on YouTube, whatever issues you have, again, you can just drop it. I also have the access to the comment section. I can also see that and reply to you. Okay. Now, because this is the lecture number 1, in the initial part of the lecture, I'll just give you a brief overview of what environment is. Okay. What is the expectation of the examiner? 1, from the prelims perspective, and second, also from the mains perspective. And then the common doubts that you generally have with respect to how to make notes, how to integrate current affairs, how to follow the sources, what sources to follow. And then specifically with the merger of Indian Forest Services exam, the weightage of environment is very high. So if somebody has to clear prelims, and again by a good margin, here you can expect around 15, 18 and even sometimes 20 questions out of 100. Okay. So that is very helpful. Some of you who are also doing this may also be aspiring for Indian Forest Services. Now I also take up classes for the Indian Forest Services, specifically the forestry optional also. So again, all that particular knowledge, the specialized knowledge, whatever is needed from the exam perspective, we will be very holistically covering. Okay. So initially, I'll just give you a brief overview of what all things that you have to keep in mind while talking of environment. Okay. Now, before I start, right now, again, this is also going to, what is the date today? 11th of November. And today's date is very auspicious from the climate change and environment perspective. Why is that? It is because, again, we'll see this in the coming classes. Today starts the very day of COP29. Okay, I'll also tell you what is COP. COP is the Conference of Parties from November 11 to November 22. This is going on in Baku, Azerbaijan. The most talked about thing every year in environment always is this conference, then climate change. Don't worry, we will see this all in appropriate sections. But again, because today is the 11th of November, I just talked to you about this. I'll also tell you how to cover these, and we'll also be covering this in our lectures. The second thing also, because again, this is the lecture on environment, and again, I'm just introducing the subject. So the very first thing, when I say environment, okay, so here, the people who are here offline and we are in Delhi, so at least the sad state of affairs in Delhi is the rising AQI, air quality. Okay. So right now, even if you see in, I think 30 minutes back, I checked, the AQI was more than 350. Okay. So what is this AQI? Why is the air quality getting worse? We already know, yes, there is a pollution going on, but from the environment perspective, we will see the rise of, let's say, SO2, sulfur dioxides, the rise of nitrogen, NOx, okay, nitrogen oxides, the per, and how this problem, let's say, which is now right now, let's say local to Delhi, but also a part of India, how this affects the entire world, and how can world come together to solve a problem like this of air pollution, and then a bigger problem of climate change. These are the terms right from, you would have, let's say, some of you have done environmental studies in class 11th or 12th, or at least you have written essays on earth, on environment. So these are just some basic keywords that you know. Okay. But of course, when we do these topics, we'll go in a lot of detail, but the main focus for us is going to be from the exam perspective, right? Whatever things you need to know, okay, in all the detail that we'll try to have a look at. Fine. So here, when I've said the basics of environment one by one, I told you I'll quickly give you the brief overview, and then today from the very basics we'll start. Okay, and again, when we are starting these classes, I am not assuming you to have any specialized background, nor am I assuming all of you are engineers or only from humanities. I'm assuming nobody has a base. So from the very basic, because the name is this is a foundation course. In the foundation course, from the very base to the most advanced, we have to go, and advanced, which is helping you crack the exam. If you want to read more, of course, I can tell you way more books, but that is not helpful to crack the exam, right? So the detailing is to be done from an exam perspective, and for that, the most important source for us is previous year questions. In the very first class, I'm telling you previous year questions is important. Okay. And again, as we go, in each theme, we are going to discuss the previous year questions. Okay. Now, when we say importance, I've already outlined that yes, in prelims, environment plays a very important role, and specifically after 2012 and 2013, you can expect 15, 16, even 18 questions. And now the category of these questions is that environment has a mixture sometimes of geography, some knowledge of science and tech is also integrated, which is why the questions can get slightly complicated. Okay. So if you are solving a question, right now, I told you about, let's say, climate change or pollution, air pollution. So a question will be based on environment, but it may be also touching upon some aspects of science also. Okay. So in prelims, we have to master it. And generally, I'll just show you the syllabus. In prelims, only one line is mentioned for environment. But if you just prepare from that one line, there's a lot of confusion. So again, the idea of this foundation course is I deal the subject in themes. If you know those themes, if you prepare those themes, you will have a very good understanding. And that is also a very good way to assess your progress. Let's say out of the 8 themes that I discuss, you're confident on 6 themes, but you're weak on 2 themes. Then you have to focus more on those 2 themes. And these themes, your competence will also depend on some of your background. Some of you, if you have a background in biology, maybe initially species topic is easy for you. Okay. But some of you may find it difficult. So again, the idea is we will cover this very thematically. So you know the importance in prelims, but equally the importance in mains is very important. Okay. Now, generally, you will associate environment only with GS3. In GS3, 3 to 4 questions out of 20 you will always get. Okay. But why have I written GS2? Because in the recent years, they have asked questions in polity and even in governance related to environment. In 2023, the very first question, if you go back and see, was constitutionalization of environmental laws and mentioned Supreme Court cases related to it. By the way, when we cover environment legislations, we already do that, but nobody was expecting such a specific question of environment will come in your GS mains. Okay. Then you have other questions. For example, if they ask you related to National Green Tribunal. Now, tribunal you generally read NGT, etc. in only basic detail in GS2. But if a question is asked right now in NGT, you have to know, and for that again, it's important. So not only GS2, GS3, additionally, I have not written here, but even GS1, for example. In GS1, we all have geography. Okay. So in GS1, there are always questions. For example, they will ask you a question of climate change even in GS1. What is the impact of climate change on, let's say, women? So now they've mixed society as well as geography as well as environment. And not to forget, you have essay. If you see the paper of this year, 2024, the very first question is on the role of forests. By the way, the similar question on forest was also repeated in 2022, 2 years back. Okay. So the point is, if you have prepared environment well, not only are you, let's say, having a good command in your prelims, you also have a very good command in essay, because either a question on the devastations or on disasters or an aspect of environment is going to be there, right? So that is one. And of course, GS1, GS2, you can also, by the way, see case studies related to environment. Let's say there's a tribal group, okay, and there's a forest being cut down and the tribal people have to be removed from one area to other, okay. That rehabilitation, etc., can again be a case study that can be asked. We'll see this, okay. So if you understand the importance, so you have to know that yes, it's an important part. And of course, every year when, of course, very shortly when the results come out, you will also have the interview preparation. Okay, you'll see a lot of DAF or some scripts, direct questions on interview related to this. So this is again a theme, and this is again good for our knowledge, good also because of the importance it has in the exam, okay, and good from all these perspectives, okay. Okay, so I think that part is clear. Okay. Yes, Ashutosh, we'll also be providing you handwritten notes. We have just started also, right? Plus, if there is any term that you are not able to understand, I'll also explain that again. So don't worry in these classes if there is an issue in understanding. Okay. The medium bulb spread the light. That's a very long name, but the medium of instruction is going to be English. If there is anything in English you want me to repeat, please mention it in the comments. I will repeat it. We may also plan a separate batch in future also for English aspirants also. So don't worry about that. Okay. So that is there, right? So this is the basic importance that we know. Now, if you see the syllabus, that is what I was telling you. It only says general issues on environment ecology, biodiversity and climate change that do not require subject specialization. Okay. Now this is actually very misleading. Why it is misleading? If you see the questions in the recent 4 or 5 years, the questions on environment, then I have to be very honest with you, are difficult. Okay. Only there are very few very easy sitter questions, but generally the questions will require a good level of application. Okay. So if you only go by this, and generally even for history also, they give you very simple syllabus. You will feel, array, this is very important. Only one environment ecology, biodiversity, climate change, I can easily cover. Okay. So if you go and if you see the previous questions again and again, so again what I've tried to do is very systematic manner, have very important themes that are there. I will also list down all the themes for you so that you know that these are the areas of focus. And by the way, there is also one hidden theme on which every year questions are asked, but it is not explicitly mentioned. Okay. So I'll just firstly outline what are the main themes that one has, which we'll also cover. Okay. So here, whatever terms we are mentioning, this is again the very first lecture, and again in environment, I'll tell you whatever we are speaking from the lecture 2, 3, 4 onwards, things will then try to sink in your mind. Okay, the pedagogy is again going to be such. Maybe there is one term that you just read in lecture number 1, but its explanation in more detail maybe there in 2, 3, 4, and moving on. Okay. So here the themes that are there for the syllabus, and if you understand this, this is going to be very helpful. Okay, so the very first basic theme is basics, and for basics, I think I'll take around 2 or 3 lectures. In this, I will cover every important term, terminologies, interactions, etc. That is the basics. That is the first theme that we have. Second theme is more specialized, where we go into detail in ecosystem, and in that we go into terrestrial, which means the land-based component. Okay, the terrestrial ecosystems, and the second is aquatic. Aquatic means the water-based ecosystems. These are there. That is the second thing. Okay. Third theme is then related to biodiversity. So here again there are two major things. One, you understand about species. In fact, in today's lecture also I'll introduce you to some 3 or 4 famous species, and then in biodiversity also the species conservation. This is again a theme within the third theme. Okay. Then after you're done with biodiversity, so here you will also understand the loss that is there with biodiversity. Okay. Now, for example, you must have heard about Amazon rainforest. Okay. These are also known as lungs of the earth. Okay. Again, by the way, if there is any term that you also hear from my mouth, again, if you want to write, you can quickly write it down. Okay. Although for some part, very important part, I'll also give you dictation so that you don't miss out. But maybe you also should have a habit of some running notes also. Now, we are saying, I spoke about the Amazon. Okay, the Amazon rainforests from Brazil. These are the lungs of the earth. Why are they lungs of the earth? Okay, and generally if there is a forest, this also very basic things also we'll see. These forests, they will take up carbon dioxide through the process of photosynthesis. Okay, and then they will release what? Oxygen and water. Okay, oh sorry, oxygen and glucose. They take up CO2 plus H2O. They release oxygen again. This is something. So these they are in news. Why? Because there's a lot of deforestation going on. Okay, so there's a lot of deforestation of Amazon rainforest, which is again a cause of concern. So we'll understand what is this. In biodiversity, there's also a very important theme within that we'll also see is man-animal conflict. Okay, If right now you watch or read any major news, you will see the deaths of elephants. Okay, almost every week you'll in the national highway or very close to Kerala or in the parts of Karnataka, they will mention the national highway. Okay, let's say, so that is there. Then the tiger related conflicts, man and tiger conflicts. Okay, recently in UP also there was a conflict related to the wolves. Okay, so this is again a very emerging theme. So that is man animal conflict, again a very important part. The fourth thing that we also do is pollution. Okay, and when you understand pollution, with that you also will cover waste management. And for pollution, the most accurate depiction for us can be, or we just know, the air quality that is worsening, but that is only limited to air. Think about water. Are you aware why Yamuna was in news very recently? And again, in case you do not know, I'll cover all of these in separate sections. Now, Yamuna was in news, the river Yamuna, because there was a toxic foam. Has anybody seen that? That images huge foams out of Yamuna. So just imagine, and why was it there? Because there was a high use of phosphates and detergents. So there was a toxic foam. In case somebody has not seen, I think just give me a second. I'll just show that to you. That is again an image that will also have a very vivid memory in your mind. Okay, so if I just show you the toxic foam, again the people who are new. Can you see this? These images, these are foams on the river Yamuna. This is again a cause of pollution and a very different type of pollution. Now, from the UPSC point of view, the question can be, and again, the people, let's say, they are again Yamuna covered in toxic froth or toxic foam, right? Just one example. And by the way, don't think that this was in news only right now. Okay, this has been in news for certain point of time. So again, this is something that we'll keep in mind. Okay, so two examples I've given you. I'll go into far more examples across India and across the world. Because in pollution, we talk about water pollution. We also talk about soil pollution. Now, on the soil, you spread a lot of pesticides, insecticides, fertilizers. They can also leach down. Second, there can be some heavy metals that can also leach. Okay, so that will again lead to contamination of soil. If the soil is contaminated, it will kill all the good microbes in the soil. Okay, so productivity of plants will also go down. Fine. So this is again a very important part. The next thing is waste. Now, for example, most of you would be using some face wash. In the face wash, there are very small micro beads. You would have heard ads like, "Kya toothpaste mein namak hai?" So there are very small particles in the toothpaste that we have, right? So here also, and you would have seen exfoliating creams. What small particles, okay? So in that one cream, there are almost very small, around 2 or 3 lakh small microplastics. And right now, microplastics are a huge source of concern. Okay, so microplastics, microbeads, this is one only aspect. In waste, we will see various kinds of waste. You can have solid waste, you can have plastic waste, okay, you can even have radioactive waste, etc., right? And how to manage, one, the issue with generation of waste, and second is how to manage that waste. That is also something that we'll also understand. Okay, then just a second. Then another important part is the environmental legislations. For example, you would have heard about maybe the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, Indian Forest Act 1927, or the Forest Rights Act 2006. Don't worry, in case these terms are very new to you. If somebody is only seeing that, I'm just overall unpacking the various components that we'll go through. And by the time you would have done this, at least some of these portions will make some sense. Okay. So environmental legislations, what are the provisions? You will see questions in prelims and mains in this. Okay. Then after this, a very important aspect is climate change. Okay, and climate change has to be covered in good detail. Okay, because a lot of discussion every year. Right now, I think some of you joined in later. I just told you today is 11th of November, and from today, the COP29 negotiations in Baku, Azerbaijan have started. Okay, COP here means Conference of Parties. And just like other parties, there are so many parties that we'll see in conventions, different COPs. Okay, this is specifically related to United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So this is going to end on 22nd of November, by the way. Okay. So till the time we are done with this, and when we do this, we'll also cover this part. Very important for the exam. If you're preparing for 2025 or let's say 2026, many of you are preparing, or even 2027, you will find again how to read such events, what are the major outcomes, etc. So again, I'm just putting some things in your mind. Okay. So this is also where the current affairs also gets integrated. So climate change, the causes, its mitigation, India's approach, everything, global approach, everything we'll cover here. And then I think this was which theme? 3, 4, oh, say 6 themes we've done. 7th theme is specifically related to conventions, okay, conferences. Now this is across all these aspects. Okay, convention related to Ramsar. We'll also see what is Ramsar, how to define Ramsar, what is the significance, conventions on biodiversity, desertification, climate change, pollution, many things, all in one theme when you do. And we do it here because we've already made a huge base till now. So here, all you have to know, and by the way, individually conventions, I'll keep on telling you in these themes, but here I will consolidate each thing. And then the final theme, and this is a theme that has gained a lot of, let's say, salience in the recent years. Here, you can say this as sustainable development oblique energy. In fact, both these things are very important. And this is an area where you are getting the new prelims related questions. Okay. Questions even on, let's say, hydrogen powered vehicles. What is that? A different form of mobility. You want to move away from diesel, petrol vehicles. You want to go for hydrogen, electric vehicles. Just one example. Biofuels. How to reduce emissions from agriculture, sustainable farming. Okay. For example, we are normal, this is let's say a concrete based construction. So from the building operations, a lot of emissions are released. How to reduce emissions from alternate use of material, thatched houses, use of bamboo. Okay, this is very much application oriented, very important. And this is also where intersection with science and tech also happens. Some of the elements, maybe in some books, in some classes, you'll also find in science and tech, but this is again a very high yielding area. And in fact, even if you see the paper of 2024, okay, so there were certain questions, be it questions related to some questions on energy, okay, some questions on, there was a question on sustainable aviation fuel. Which of the following can be used as a sustainable aviation fuel? They had given you 5 options. Where would you classify this in all these 5, in all these themes? It will go in the last theme. It was also in the current affair, right? So when you have this, okay, now my job is to make these things very easy for you. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll cover the static areas in this, the very basic foundational concepts, plus the current affairs updates in this. Now again, if you are a part of the foundation batch, you also have separate current affairs classes also, right? So here, other updations that will happen month by month, etc., is also a part for the foundation students, right? So we also have the subject specific classes. This is the class pertaining to environment, and beyond that also, whatever current affairs will be there till your exam, there also prelims, till prelims and even till mains, you have a support in these foundation classes. Okay, because some of you are new, I need to also tell you what are Anjali, okay, you have a doubt related to numbering of COPs. Okay, so what is your doubt? Can you please tell me? Yes, Ashutosh, yes, there was a toxic foam, death of elephants in MPs. Yes, absolutely. That is a very good update. Okay, and in that, when I tell you, I'll also tell you about Kodo millets. Again, that's a part of current affairs in Bandhavgarh in MP. Okay, that was in news. Now, first of all, these are the themes. Now, second, and again, I'm just right now giving you overall an overview. Now, when you go to, let's say, prelims, now there are different kinds of questions asked. Some questions are purely term based. Okay, they'll just give you a term. Okay, for example, and for each of them, some of this I'll give you examples. For example, they had asked you, what is greenwashing? Just a term, 4 options. If you know it. If you don't know, you don't know it. It is almost similar to questions on ancient and medieval. They'll ask you, what is araghatta? Okay, or any other similar term, and then again your mind goes, "Arey, ye to kab padha tha," right? So similar terms there are also there. These are slightly difficult. If you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. Generally here, if you have followed, let's say, the classes, if you followed the test series, etc., generally you will find. If you are not able to find anywhere, then it can also be happening. The term is very much vague. Other students also may not know it. So that is one kind of question that they ask. then there are certain questions that will 100% just touch on the very basics. Are you done with the basics or not? For example, even if, by the way, when the prelims was also tough, the toughest prelims was 2023. The cutoff was around 75. Even then, you will find some very basic questions. What are the components in acid rain? Okay. So there will always be certain basic questions. Our job is to get those basic questions right. Okay. That is one way of question. And in this, there can be certain varieties. Then there are questions wherein your knowledge of map is also important to know, and this is where there is an overlap with geography. Now this year, and this is again the points where I'm marking a star mark is automatically your homework. Okay, this year there was a question on Panta, one second, Pantanal wetlands. Okay, now you have to see where they are. I can directly tell you, but again I would want you to look out, because from the next class onwards we'll also have a dedicated habit of mapping. Okay, for that, you, if you want, you can also bring the map, because again what I'll do, especially for India, from the very first class I'll try the important species and the important protected areas which are in the news or we should know. I'll keep on emphasizing them. So my idea is that by the end of these classes, these things should be imprint in your mind. Okay, otherwise generally the students that they would do, they will read some basic terms from environment, and then at the very last they are then confused. They see this as a separate thing. No, this is not a separate thing. This is again an integrated part. Environment is everything that is around us. By the way, when I tell you the definitions, then this will also, so these kind of questions, this is an international question, by the way. You will also get questions, by the way, when we say map and geographical aspects. For example, let's say Chilika. So based on Chilika, now Chilika Lake is very important. Okay, it is a brackish water lake. It's not a fresh water lake. It is very famous for Irrawaddy dolphins also. So in which state it is? Okay, what are the different types of dolphin, etc. From that map perspective. Okay, Sundarbans. Now for Sundarbans, 3 or 4 important attributes they may ask. Okay, so map based questions. So what tip I will have, maybe you will not be able to do it live in the class. Okay, so what I'll suggest, whenever you take notes, even after the class, just put a M in certain areas, and then after the class, maybe after 4 or 5 class, when you get, let's say, time, write all these things down at 2 levels, at the India level and at the world level. Okay, for example, right now also I just gave you one example of Amazon. Okay, in the class on biodiversity, I'll tell you something update related to Amazon. There was a declaration related to Amazon. So that is how you'll keep things in mind. This, I'm not telling you right now, but now when I do wetlands, I'll also tell you this particular fact. So the map based knowledge is something I would encourage, and this will take time and effort. Now another very easy source is Google Maps. Okay, let's say you are not very easy, sir, I have to get a printout and then that gets torn, and then that is also a problem. So what you can do, you can have a list of locations. Okay, so this is something that is important. Then there are questions that are going to be very much application based. Species, I'm tackling it separately because species also gives a headache to a lot of people. Okay, before preparing for environment for UPSC, you generally think, array, this is such a good bird, cow, crow, etc. But now you have to know everything about the species. What is their behavior? Okay, so for example, in art and culture, you also read about different dances. Here also you'll read about a dancing deer. You'll also read about a waggle dance of honeybee. Okay, you'll also see dancing frogs. Just these are just some examples that I'm telling you. And why am I telling you? Because waggle dance was already asked by UPSC in 2023. Okay, again we'll see these things. So application based questions will be there. Okay, so here generally you'll see these questions in climate change mitigation, pollution, etc., where you'll have multiple options. Okay, this is again a type of question. And in species, here you will see multiple types of questions. They may ask you where that species is, what is a certain unique behavior of a species. Abhi, I think in next 2 or 3 minutes, I'll tell you or show you certain questions that were asked in the exam. So unique behaviors this year, especially for the lions, they asked the specific behaviors of lions also. Okay, how they mark their territories. Okay, do they use scent, etc. So that is, so where, then their behavior, and anything which stands out related to them, maybe their conservation status. Okay, So here I'll tell you as the classes go on which species has to be conserved, which is endangered, which is critically endangered. All these basic attributes we will understand as the time goes. Okay. And to understand this better, this is again a simple classification that I'm telling you. Sorry, kuch you wanted to ask? Achha, okay. Here your best bet has to be previous year questions. Okay. Whenever you find time, even if 5 questions, 6 questions, try to see the questions of environment. Okay. We will also be planning a class on all the previous year questions again. Okay, I think it is going to be scheduled soon, that you'll also get to know about that. So then also you will see, but here try to do it here itself. That is one way. Okay, the same approach can also be there for mains. Okay, for mains I'll just tell you, just let me show you a couple of questions from the exam. And why are we doing this at the very basic outset? Just to familiarize ourselves. Again, I'm not expecting you to right now answer them. You need some knowledge to be able to process that. But this is just to show you and tell you what are the different kind of. Ashutosh, see, application based questions, again, just the slides I'm just going to show you, so don't worry. Okay, there will be some questions and then in respective each topic. Okay, for example, today in 2024, there was a question on forever chemicals, which are known as poly or perfluoroalkyl compounds, PFAS. Okay, so they had asked you all the basic, let's say, from what are the sources which contribute to PFAS. Okay, similarly related to which can be the sources of pollutants. Okay, and then how to solve a problem, etc. These can all be application based questions. Okay, so I'll just tell you certain questions here. Okay, so that is, I think you will have a certain idea. If we study the approach thematic wise, it is helpful. Number one, this is what we've seen. Again, in mains also, you see only 3 things are mentioned. Okay, one is conservation, one is environmental pollution and degradation. This is exactly that is mentioned in the syllabus. Okay, and this is EIA, environment impact assessment. Because it is mentioned, and imagine this year a direct question in mains was on EIA. But the question that they had asked, now this is again, I'm just putting a star mark. We'll also see this separately. In this question, what they had asked, what is the role of NGOs in EIA? As a 10 marker, they had asked. So the point is what is mentioned in the syllabus. Of course, in our classes, we cover EIA. But the point is whatever is there directly, you should know. Okay. But you should know that in mains, even beyond, they've just mentioned conservation. What kind of conservation? Okay, conservation can be, we'll see later on, in situ conservation, ex situ conservation. What are the different approaches? Various types of pollution. So there are many types of questions asked. Okay, but the point is what is directly mentioned, you should be aware about it. Okay, that's the basic idea. Now what I'll do, okay, I'll just show you certain questions that have been asked just to see a trend. Okay, and then we will start with the very basics of our lecture, right? And then in between also, I'll also tell you how to make some notes and how to follow the sources. That is how we'll start, right? Now, a couple of questions. This is, I think, just one question, because sometimes we don't know to which depth we have to read. Okay. So again, I'll tell you, for species, sometimes they ask you to this depth. For example, whether lions have a particular breeding season. Again, these are questions of 2024. Okay. Unlike most of the big cats, cheetah do not roar. Now, they're asking about lions, but they've also compared this with cheetah. Okay. And third, male lions and male leopards. Okay. Now, there was a big event. India had celebrated the 50 years of Project Tiger. Okay. And because of that, we had launched International Big Cat Alliance. Okay. So whatever things they've mentioned, lions, cheetahs, leopards, all these are what? Big cats. In the lectures on species, we'll go into detail and we'll see the differences in all of them. But this is again, because 50 years, Project Tiger was launched in 1973. So in 2023, 50 years. And because of those 50 years, India had launched an international big cat alliances. Okay. So what they have tried to do, they've asked you slightly this in more detail. They've tried to also compare. Okay. So this is one way. So here they're even asking you some behavioral attributes, okay, of some of the species, right? Another question, for example, which of the following is belonging to the pea family? Okay. Now there are going to be questions which will have repetition of previous year questions also. A similar question, what can be used to create a biofuel? Similar options was also there back then. Okay. And then these questions also in their respective parts we'll also understand. Okay, so again, when we go to specifically the leguminous plants and pea family, we'll also see this. But my point is, sometimes having a very good knowledge on previous year questions help. Okay, this is just one type of question. Another questions now, for example, marsupials are not naturally found in India. Okay, again, I'm not assuming you to know what are marsupials, but I'm just asking, has anybody heard or seen, of course you would have not seen directly, kangaroo? If you follow in India, Australia, or the cricket, you generally see we refer them as kangaroos. Okay. If you have not even seen, maybe in certain cartoons you would have seen a kind of a mammal who has a pouch. In that pouch, they nurture their young ones. Okay. So what is this question? And again, there was a certain element of current affairs here. But again, this is a type of question: where can they thrive? So they're asking you which species is also living where. Okay. So again, when I say map based questions, India has a huge biodiversity. Okay. We have from Siachen glaciers, Himalayas, in that, let's say you find snow leopard. That's a different climate. You go to arid, semi-arid regions of, let's say, Rajasthan, Gujarat. Okay. So here Chinkara or the black buck, for example, is in news. Then you can even say some other, let's say, Indian wild ass. Okay. Some other, so that is a different vegetation. Then you go to, let's say, the central part of India, you will have more grasslands. Kuno National Park, I'll also tell you, Kuno National Park is in Madhya Pradesh. It's a grassland. Why am I discussing Kuno National Park? Anybody has an idea? Bilkul, very good. Cheetah reintroduction program. So from Namibia and South Africa, we brought African cheetah from there to Kuno. But the vegetation of Kuno is different. Kuno is grassland. So when I discuss, let's say, cheetah, etc., with you, then I'll tell you why grassland was chosen. Why did they not bring in Himalayas, or why did they not bring in the southern part of India? Okay. Then let's say we move to Sundarbans. Where is Sundarbans? Very good. ठीक है, West Bengal. अभी आगे देखेंगे ये सारा by one it will be imprinted in your mind. Okay. What is it famous for? Good, good. Anything else? From environment perspective, tigers, Royal Bengal tiger. Okay. It is also famous for the world's largest mangrove forests. Okay, we'll also see that. Okay, so the point is, it's a different vegetation there. In the northeast part of India, different vegetation. Assam, etc., you have more rainfall. Okay, then you go to the southern part, you have Western Ghats. Western Ghats has huge rainfall. Okay, very good rainfall in the windward side. So you'll have very good biodiversity there. So the point is, don't understand the species isolated. Just I will cram, I will see the name, this is there. No. Whenever you see a species, and we will make this a habit from the first class itself. Okay. In this class also, whatever species I'll say, when I describe, I'll show you their map also, their name also. So, sorry, not their name, how they look. Now, most of the species you would have known. Now, if I say lion, everybody knows what is a lion. But we'll make it a habit. Because the moment I say, let's say, what's a porcupine? Some of you may not know. Okay. What is a minnow? M-I-N-N-O-W. What's a crab, what's a crustacean, etc. So we will also make a habit of seeing things. Okay. And which is why all our classes in the foundation sector, we will have a very rich visual format of seeing things. Okay. Visualizing the class itself. Okay. So that will also make your job very interesting, because at the end, I do not want that you look at the species and then you tear your hair. Okay. You should see them and you should know, I know this, I know this, I know this. Through stories also we'll discuss them. What were some of the conservation ideas? We'll see that. Fine. Similar questions, for example, Bhitarkanika. Now, your job later on, whenever you see a location, now here, of course, let's say you don't even read the question. There is an answer to this question, but there are other locations mentioned. Year after year, we have seen, let's say, Ran of Kutch, maybe in some other year, this will become a question and it will get asked. Bhitarkanika, if you don't know, for some other reason, Bhitarkanika may also get asked in the exam. Okay. So we will, and these are the small attributes, because at the outset I've told you there will be some tougher portions in environment. But if you have a very basic, no, I will do the hard work, I'll not take shortcuts. Shortcuts can only mean you just only read it from a cursory point of view. The hard work will be that, of course, you see the classes in good detail, you revise them, but additionally, you try to locate things in your mind and you internalize them. Okay. If you do that, this will become easy for you. That is the whole idea, right? Similar questions on wildlife protection. This is a part of legislations, I told you, right? So again, we're not going, but again, you will see, let's say, ghadial, wild ass buffalo. What is the implication of a part? Questions on mushrooms, and here the questions, just see, various properties of mushrooms, let's say psychoactive properties, insecticidal properties, etc., bioluminescence, medicinal, etc. So again, you'll see there is a huge, let's say, diversity that they're asking you. Okay, sometimes these are some of the bodies that you read about: WWF, Wildlife Fund for Nature, IUCN. Based on that, some program they will ask you. Okay, so these are different ways of asking you questions and programs. Okay, another questions, let's say here, Forest Rights Act. This is again a question, for example, they've asked you. Okay, this is the question I told you. Waggle dance. Okay, so this is a very specific species behavior. Okay, now just a very basic thing I'll tell you. The moment a wicket goes down in cricket, you would have seen everybody coming and making a huddle. Okay, can you remember any species that makes a huddle? And if it does, why would it do so? Achha, if the people get very close, they will feel warm. Okay, so when we go to Arctic regions and when we see penguins, penguins have a specific huddling behavior. They will come together like this. Okay, so there are certain species that are very famous for certain behaviors. This is only one aspect. Other thing I can also show you, the penguins have a very fat, a lot of fat in their skin, again to save them. Same can also be there for, let's say, when we say, let's say the panda species that are going to be found in certain areas. Okay, or if there's a leopard in grasslands versus a leopard in Himalayas, there's going to be variation in how they perform and what is the behavior that they have, right? So that is one. Okay, and then again some certain attributes which lives active during the day and night. Again, these are just things just to make you tell you. Okay, some of you asked that was some application based questions. Now there's a question: which of the following, this is related to hydrofluorocarbons. Okay, and then you have to choose between certain options. So when we understand these topics, again HFC, etc., when we will do pollution, in pollution, etc., when we talk about refrigeration, from refrigeration, initially chlorofluorocarbons were released, which was a pollutant. It was replaced later by hydrofluorocarbons. Now the question is asking you in which of the following it is released, or this is a source. Okay, so this is again a kind of a question that we'll see. Okay, similarly, primary producers in food chain of oceans. This kind of questions, again, by the 4th or 5th class, you will be very much aware, okay, how to solve certain questions. Okay, so these are some of the questions that I've asked you. But again, remember, now when you see these terms, you don't have to get frightened. I'll tell you how to remember and understand these terms, but this is just to tell you that you are expected to, now environment is requiring certain efforts from your end. Okay, and it is not just this. If you look at polity, if you look at other subjects also, the nature of prelims, the competition is there. So even in the foundation classes earlier, many students they will feel that only you have to just cursory go through some basic proper notes, etc. So here again the idea is cover things in good detail. Okay, so the people who have already, I think, who are a part of foundation, you have the access to NCERT classes, right? Okay, so in environment, NCERT classes are very important. Okay, so either you can cover it through that. Now the people who are also watching us on YouTube, okay, so we also have NCERT classes which are going on live. The environment classes will also start very soon. Okay, so if you have had issues related to class 11th class, class 12th class, NCERT, very basic terms, I've covered them in the foundation class itself, so don't worry about it. So again, those of you who are watching this can also do that from there, right? So that is something. Okay, just a second. Okay, so we have seen certain trends here. So here, one thing I would expect, see, in the respective themes, we will do all the questions that are there in the previous year questions. But the second thing is, whenever you find time, because the next, I think, almost 1 month, etc., you have for environment and disaster management, right? So try to cover them one by one. Okay, just see that. Okay, I'll also give you my insights. Okay, so that will also help. Try to make this a habit at your end. Okay. Second, I'm just showing a couple of questions that have been asked in mains also. Okay, for example, explain in detail photochemical smog. Now, smog is again something which is very relevant for the current context. Okay, again, when you go out, very soon you will see that you cannot even see beyond 2 meters. Why? There's a huge layer of smog, and when there is smog, there will also be irritation in the eyes. You'll also notice this, a lot of coughing also. Okay, and why is that? Irritation is there because of nitrous oxide. It causes a red haze. Okay, similar issue is also there because one is coughing, Third is issue of visibility. Okay, and we'll understand why this is formed, how to control that, etc. But see, this is a question that is asked also in mains, just a variety. Second, global warming is a topic we also read. This is again asked, what is the impact of this, right? Similarly, even coastal erosion. Now please see question number 4. What are they saying? Describe the major outcomes of 26th session of Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC. What are the commitments made by India in this conference? Now this question was, I think this is a question of 2022. The conference happened in 2021. Okay. Right now, what is the session that is going on? 29th. But that is again this UNFCCC. Okay. So a probable question when you appear in the exam can be, what are the outcomes of this? And if they not ask you here, they can also still ask you in prelims. They'll give you 6 or 7 points or 5 points. They'll ask which of the following is an outcome of 29th COP. And to confuse you, they'll give you some other COP objectives also, right? Again, so from these questions, the whole idea that you will get is the depth in which you have to prepare, right? Then, for example, explain the purpose of Green Grid Initiative, which was launched, okay? International Solar Alliance, okay? So this is again a topic that I told you related to energy, okay? Sustainable development, energy, that is the last thing that is there, okay? Because now the most talk that is going to happen, for example, you've seen Tata Nexon, all the different EVs that are coming up, okay? Tesla was very famous, why? Because of that being EV, right? And what are the new, that is only one aspect. I'm only talking about, let's say, mobility, but in all the domains, be it wind energy, be it solar energy, this is also a very important part, okay? So that is how all the lectures here are being structured in a very comprehensive manner, right? So that is one, right? So here also from the trends, you also get to know the things that have been used, you should know, plus the basic concepts definitely one should have an idea about, okay? Is this clear till now? Okay, so I've just briefly introduced you and told you what are the expectations, okay, or what is the trend, etc., that is going on, okay. Then we go into the pedagogy, and here I'll just take 2 or 3 more minutes, okay. So here the pedagogy, again, I will be covering things in a thematic manner, okay, for each lecture, proper, with a lot of examples, with a lot of, let's say, stories also, so that you remember, with a lot of infographics, so that also helps you keep things in your mind. And this will ensure your coverage, very comprehensive coverage of prelims and mains, right? Plus, I'll also be including current affairs part, which also makes your class interesting, but you also get to know whatever you're reading in the class, how that is relevant to the day to day. Okay, for example, again, I just gave you the example. The moment you see the AQI, I think it was 382 almost, okay, what to make of it, what kind of questions can be asked from that, okay? So you will have an idea about that. The fourth thing is the answer writing aspect and even the MCQs. Now in each class, in fact in today's class also, there will be certain previous year questions. After every class, there will be certain practice questions. So you should have a habit, the moment the class ends and the next class begins, whatever practice questions are given to you on that day, okay, it can be 5, 6, 7 depending on the topic, practice it. It may happen that you make mistake in all the questions, no issues. Always remember, the more you make mistakes initially, you will then get to know what is the exact concept, because here you will make mistakes. The questions may be slightly challenging also. So when you make mistakes in these MCQs, you will then get an idea, okay? And then again your concepts will get better. Second is the answer writing component, okay? So again, after 3 or 4, 5 lectures, when I know that you have sufficient content, at least very basic, you cannot expect to be a Michelangelo or let's say Picasso, Da Vinci in one day or not even in 1 month. But what should be, or at least try to scribble something down, okay? That is why I would always encourage to also take running notes in the class, okay? It is always proven scientifically also, what you write with your own hands always sticks to mind. You may read somebody else's notes, okay? It may give you the feeling that you know, but unless you have put things in your hands, okay, that always helps. And which is again to tell you, you will also get the handwritten notes of the lectures. But again, I would insist that you should also make your own notes, okay? Because many times, sometimes there is only a, let's say if I'm giving you a dictation later on, but some very minute aspects I've already told you before, okay, anything. And you would again see, the moment you see the exam paper, sometimes you will see, array sir was discussing this thing in this area, now this has become an option. And this thing happens, okay? So this is something. So again, both answer writing part for mains and this is something where I would again help you out with. For this, we also have dedicated weekly answer writing sessions also, okay, plus some 1 or 2 questions I'll also have here in the class itself, okay. And again, I know there are only limited people here, so again I can be very pinpointed, okay, 5 or 10 minutes, they will put you in a pressure, and then you'll try to write that, right? So that is there. And the last thing is revision, or I generally say that as a recap, okay. So before the class, every class ends, everything that I've done in 5, 6, 7 minutes, I'll just try to quickly recap, okay. This will help you with memory, and this is just a way which I want you to develop also, that whatever notes you take in the class, you have spent, let's say, 2.5 to 3 hours in a class, in one class, for example, how to condense those 180 minutes to 10 minutes, okay. Or maybe you may not be able to do it in one go. I can do it because let's say I know exactly how to cut things, trim things down. Let's say you take 180 minutes, you cut it down to slightly around 60 minutes or even 30 minutes. The more iterations then you do later on, okay, then you will get better at it. Again, remember this, everything here, you are giving a competitive exam. You are not expected to get a PhD in environment or in any of the subjects. Although you may be tempted to, because the kind of, let's say, interaction you'll have, you will fall in love with the subject generally. So you want to go in a lot of detail, but then also you have to stop, and then you have to again put your mind that I have to clear the exam. For clearing the exam, the more repetitions that you can do, and for that also you will also get the prelim static notes, okay, the book, very much, very short, very condensed, okay. So the point is, if somebody is reading 300, 400, 500 pages, it is impossible to revise it multiple times. And then there are many things. See, here also I'll tell you what is important and what is not important. That knowledge in itself will help you revise faster, okay. Plus in the class itself, again, there will be a lot of questions that will be asked, okay. So your mind has to reinforce, okay. That is how we remember. The step to remember is to how quickly can you go through your notes, fine. So the determinant in all of this, and which is going to define how well you perform in the exam, is how much can you revise at the end, okay. So after the classes also, again, you also have the mentor access, and you can also reach out to your individual faculties also, how to revise, how to make the best use of time, etc. So that can also be done, right? So that is how the classes are designed. Again, how to take notes, this is again just one thing I'll again say, because environment has a huge weightage of current affairs. You don't know, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 4 months now, there is something that you want to add, okay. There is something new information that also helps, maybe something you do a test series, you make a mistake, or some new insight you get, current affairs you want to add. So whenever you are making notes, you can make notes either digital or, let's say, handmade, okay, whatever works for you. If you are, let's say, making notes like this, ठीक है, तो आप एक हर टॉपिक के लेक्चर के बाद just leave one page at least. If you already have, if you can make margins, make it like this. It is always helpful to add later on, okay. So this is something, because again, you should have very continuous, very flowing notes. So for example, you've read something about tiger, cheetah, some new aspects, new update, you just add it to your notes, okay. So that always helps, okay. Now the last 2 things that I have to tell you, one, for example, the integration of newspaper in this, okay. So this is what I was telling you, the 2 major updates. This is again an update of just 627. The Delhi continues to choke, very poor, AQI is more than 350, for example, okay. And similar thing, this COP29 in Azerbaijan, by Baku, that is happening, okay. That is just one of the updates that is there for today, right? Second is, again, for example, 2024 is set to be the first year that reaches 1.5 degree warming limit, okay. What is 1.5, etc., is going to be dealt in the climate change lecture. But again, the point is, newspaper current affairs is important. For that, again, for the foundation students, we already have the current affairs classes also, okay. But let's say you already have a habit of reading newspapers, you spend 20, 30, 40 minutes, you don't have to spend a lot of time here. So when we cover things thematically, okay, so now then you get to understand, so this is the topic in pollution, this I have read in this area. So that is the first level of analysis. Otherwise you would not know where to place an event that has happened, okay. So here also in the classes, I will also be incorporating most of the current affairs. Additionally, after that, you already have access to the current affairs classes, which are also very detailed, okay. So again, the team is putting the effort there also. So again, that will help you, because again, you cannot only expect to cover any of these topics, be it science, environment, okay, even polity for that matter. A lot of current affairs is being added, okay. So keep a tab on that as well, okay. So with that said, okay, the last thing I'll tell you here, okay, what are the sources? That this is again a question that is generally asked in the comment section also. हाँ, yes, बिल्कुल 29 is Azerbaijan, Baku. Okay. So what are the sources that you can follow? So number one, again, because you're going to see the classes, okay, going to spend a lot of time, okay. So the class notes can be your primary source. In addition to that, let's say some of you who are also seeing this on YouTube, you also want to cover this. NCRT is again a very good source, okay. Specifically the last 4 chapters of class 12th bio, okay. There are also some chapters, for example, class 7th geography NCRT, that also tells. And by the way, sometimes the images that are there in the NCRT, sometimes that can also be asked as a question, okay. So the people who are watching this on YouTube, okay, and if you want, we will also be very soon having the live classes of environment, okay. So you can also cover it from here. Already the NCRT classes are going on. The students in the foundation, you already have the access to the NCRT classes. So this you can easily cover, but I will again in my classes do this in more detail with you. So that is not a problem that you should have, okay. Then additionally, ultimately, what should be a concise source? Let's say you go for books. Again, while I read a lot of books at my end, I would not encourage a lot of books for you, especially because for environment, there's no single book that can help you answer everything. Because the book, whenever it is published, there is a lot of updates that have happened. Okay. So what can you do? So one, you have to be good in static. For current affairs, okay, whatever sources, for example, in case you are following the very, let's say, comprehensive Sunya notes, you can follow this, okay. Many topics that have not been covered, and this is not just for 1 year, throughout the last 4 or 5 years, the difficult topics that are there, you will find here, okay, in the Sunya, the current affairs notes, okay. Yes, it takes more time because you have to cover very, very minute aspects. This is something you can follow, okay. A very good source. For static also, the people who have done, if you've done your foundation classes from anywhere, for example, okay, around 100 pages, the notes are condensed, okay. This you can easily revise, as opposed to, let's say, there are books 500, 600, 700 pages. There are even bigger international books also that are famous for environment, not very helpful in my perspective. Something of this sort is helpful, okay. Other than that, this is something that you have to master. Previous year questions for prelims as well as mains. And when I say masters, as much as you can, don't ratify or don't cram the answer. That should never be done. Try to understand what was the thought process to arrive at the answer. Okay. In these classes also, how to think is also going to be a major part. So that whenever you find a difficult question on the spot, what should be your thought process? Okay. So previous year questions can be one. Now, additionally, let's say you are a veteran aspirant, you have already done this, but you still want more sources, because generally the students always recommend that is that one brilliant source that you want to follow, okay. So here there are a couple of recommendations if you want to follow and if you have time, okay. There is a good site that is there, that is Monga Bay, okay. Now specifically in Hindu, there is a section related to technology, and in that technology there is a section related to environment, okay. That is something you can follow if you really want to go into the extreme micro, okay. And another source similarly is in Indian Express. There's a specific explained section related to climate, only for climate, okay. But anybody who is preparing, this is only for somebody who has done everything, and by everything there is going to be only 0.000001%, okay. This is useful for somebody like me who will read this, incorporate it in the classes, or it will be incorporated in the current affairs, okay. So that is how you can prepare. These will be more useful, let's say, when you're preparing for interview, or you want to just add examples during your mains. It is helpful more than, because already you don't have to just manage one syllabus, okay. You just not just one subject, there are many things you have to manage. So do this and do this again and again. Additionally, after you're done with previous year questions, what is better ROI is to do any test series specific to, let's say there are questions on environment, okay. So for example, if you have seen our, let's say in PRP also, in BRAHMASTRA or any other institution test series that you follow, after you're done with this, let's say 200, 150, 200 questions, you practice specifically to environment, okay. You will then again make mistakes, classify the mistakes into themes, and then revise those themes again, okay. So instead of reading too many books, that is again a very good way to follow. I think this should be more than comprehensive, okay. And again, with absolute honesty, I'll again tell you that even if you do all of this, and despite the fact that I have my students who also prepare for the Indian Forest Services, there will be 3 or 4 questions, or maybe 2 or 3 depending on the difficulty, that you still don't know, So now your mind says, should you go for all the questions? Not a great strategy. Okay, because again you would know in the, let's say, higher cutoffs in difficult prelims, or in the lower cutoffs in difficult prelims, you have to get the basics right, some application based questions right, and then move to other subject, other subject, other subject, right? So that is how you will do this. All right. Monga Bay is the name of a site you can just have a look at. Okay, that for that also there is again some of specific to environment. Okay, yes. So in our, we have all, I've already, let's say, we incorporate it in some of our notes also, but just there are some students who specifically have this doubt. Okay, is this part clear? Okay, so with this clear, okay, let us start with the very first class. So we will start with the very basic terms. Okay, and in this first class and maybe in the second class, there are a lot of terms. To understand the subject, we should know its vocabulary. Okay, that will make your and our job very easy. Now whenever I say the term, let's say ecology, ecotone, ecocline, so on and so forth, niche, you will exactly have that idea what it means. Okay, and here you have the liberty to stop me as many times as you can. Okay, you can ask, because here the only way that you should know that you know the concept or not, are you able to define it very simple terms or not. Okay, if let's say you are not able to define, or you don't know the example, it simply means you don't know it, as simple as that. Okay, we go into what are biotic, abiotic factors, we go into levels of organization, we go into what is ecotone, niche, okay, and certain abiotic factors, right? Being the first class, again in the first class I will go slightly so slow here, because in the first two classes, at least in initial classes, I will ensure all the concepts, foundational knowledge you have, and then based on that we'll build a building. Okay, and by now it's a building, it's a continuous process, right? So with that we will start. Okay, we'll start with environment. So now there are few terms that I'll firstly write. Okay, you will just first try to understand them. I'll link it to a lot of, let's say, current affairs also. The moment you understand those terms, I'll also, for some very basic terms, I'll also give you some dictation, you can write that down. But you should also keep on writing down the examples I'm using. Okay, the examples will also give you a great insight, right? So whenever we read, you read that subject is environment and ecology. Okay, so there may be a question in your mind that what these mean. So first term that we generally read is environment. Another term that we say, because we say environment and ecology. Okay, so to understand the difference here, just think about what terms that we use in common language. Generally we say the environment, let's say in Delhi right now, it is polluted or toxic. So let's say you are there, you are wearing a mask and you go out, you are not able to see. What is that? You are breathing the air. There is some, let's say, soil. There may be some plants nearby, etc. Similar thing we sometimes use in our house also. Sometimes we say the environment is not conducive for studies. That's why I want to join a library. Okay, maybe let's say we say that. So what is environment? We use this term so many times. Okay, in fact we are interacting right now. We can even say this to be our environment. Okay, that is a term that we use. And then there's a term that is used as ecology. Okay, so let us basically understand these two terms, right? So environment, when I say that, okay, so environment is everything that is there, that is outside of me. Okay, so I am there. Okay, plus everything that is there. I've used the word everything. In technical terms, I can say everything, and I can divide this everything into abiotic and biotic factors. Biotic simply means living, abiotic means non-living. So ultimately, what is environment? Everything that surrounds us. So this is a very simple definition. Everything that surrounds us. It means there are also some living beings. There are also some non-living beings. So if I were to just draw it down, okay, let's say if I talk about the components, these are the two components, right? So for example, we say what are the abiotic components? Can you give me some examples? Right now we just saw air. Let's say yes. Okay. Okay. We what else? pH. Even related to soil, the pH can be there. What else? Temperature. The temperature can be less. It can be more depending on the season. Okay. You can keep on adding here. Anything else that comes to mind? So with air, I can even mention wind. Water, think of water as let's say in a pond, but you can even add rain, precipitation, yes, soil can be there. These are all abiotic components. So the moment I say everything that surrounds me, I'm going to talk about this. This is abiotic. But is only, or should I say only abiotic is there? No. You also have biotic components, which means what are the living beings? Can you give me examples of biotic component? This is biotic. Okay. Yeah. Right. So this is not living. Anything which is not living is non-living. So when I say pH, when we say lakes or water, yes, right, right, right. For here, जैसे water को अभी standalone entity आपने माना जैसे, right? So here, if I want to even classify it further, I can say whether the water is acidic or not. Acidic water. So in that you can even measure the pH. Okay. Second, the pH also, one is related to water. It is also related to soil. एक चीज होती है, हम बोलते हैं buffering capacity of soil. हमने when we apply fertilizers, let's say on this part, okay, of the soil. So here it can also be acidic. आपने सुना होगा you then apply gypsum on the soil to make it more alkaline. Okay, so what you are doing, you are altering the pH. This is again an attribute of that, right? You can say that. Abiotic में living में I think the answers that you gave fair points. You can say plants. Okay. Okay. अब इसको you can divide it further in more terms. These terms I'll do in more detail, but again we can say terms like producers. Producers are, by the way, also known as autotrophs. Okay. We have animals, but instead of animals, I can say there are consumers. Now the consumers can be primary consumers. You can have secondary consumers, tertiary, etc. For this, see, this is all going to be covered tomorrow also in more detail, but here I'll just give you some examples. For example, now plants are producers, autotrophs. It simply means they will make their own food. Plants undergo a process that is known as photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, what will happen? You will have carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of sunlight to create sugars. Okay. So through the process of photosynthesis, plants are able to make their own food. Now this plant is then eaten up by, let's say, a herbivore. I've used the term herbivore. What is a herbivore? Sorry? Don't eat meat. ठीक है, चलो. The better way can be who eat grasses. ठीक है? That is a herbivore. So again, any deer can be a herbivore. तो ये क्या हो जाएगा? Primary consumer. Primary consumer is directly dependent on the plant. ठीक है? Deer ने किसको खाया? Plant को. Deer को कौन खाएगा? Lion, let's say. Okay. So lion is eating this. So that is how a chain is going to be made. Okay. Then you have plants, you have animals. I can even add, see, you have producers, consumers. Then you have decomposers. Decomposer के लिए the most prominent two examples are bacteria, fungus. When we do the process of decomposition, we'll also see detritivore क्या होते हैं, scavengers क्या होते हैं, etc. in more detail. For now, you can only know that we have bacteria and we have fungus. Okay, these are decomposers. Decomposers, in what is the work? Let's say there are the leaf falls down from a tree. Okay, or there is a dead remain of any plant or animal. So they will break it down. They will break down or work on the detritus. Detritus का मतलब होता है dead remains of plants and animals. Okay. So very simple terms. Abhi tak all that we have seen is what is environment. What is environment? Everything that surrounds us. In that you can have biotic factors. You can have abiotic factors. In चीजों को try to bring them in your own use. Okay. Air, wind, etc. Water. Many components can be there related to abiotic. I can even add salt, salinity also as a abiotic factor. Okay. Then biotic में you have plants. You have, or you can say producers, consumers, decomposers. Now as we move, remember what was the second theme? Ecosystem. In that terrestrial and aquatic. अब terrestrial में भी हम देखेंगे same chain को. You will understand in terrestrial how the food chain works. We'll also understand in aquatic how the food chain works. So many a times जनरली द स्टूडेंट्स हैव अ प्रॉब्लम इन aquatic systems. ठीक है, आपको नहीं पता होगा कि कौन किसको खा रहा है, नाम भी बड़े अजीब अजीब होंगे. krill, what is a krill? Maybe you don't know. What's a minnow? ठीक है, again by the way it's a very small fish, but again herring क्या है? Okay, so we will see that. So if you know this very basic knowledge right now, that what are the components, there are abiotic components, there are biotic components, and then based on that we will move ahead. This is only what is surrounding us. Okay, and by the way, this interaction is going to happen in the surroundings. Okay, that's the first part. So again, going back, we have seen what is environment. So for our knowledge, it is everything that is going to surround us, that is the environment. Okay, then what is ecology? Okay, whenever there is a logos or logy at the end, you have heard about zoology, okay, biology, okay. Logy or logos means to study, okay. And oikos, this is actually from this word, which is basically the house. So when you study the interactions that are happening, okay, or in very simple terms, it is what is ecology? It is the study of interactions that are happening in the environment. Very simple definition. I can make it slightly more complicated. It is the study of interactions that are happening between the biotic as well as the abiotic factors. मैंने क्या करा, मैंने environment की definition को और expand कर दिया. Okay, so what is ecology? Oikos is, it is the study, and I'll make you write down who coined the term, कब साल में आया, क्या आया, वो सब we'll see that. But अभी for now we'll just understand in very simple terms what this is. Okay, so ecology is the study. Okay, now it is divided into two types. One type is known as autoecology. Another type is known as synecology. ठीक है. So let's imagine all of you are, and we are on a tour of Sundarbans. In Sundarbans, we already know it has the world's largest mangrove forests. Okay, I'll also show you the image also, don't worry. In Sundarbans, let's say you and I are scientists and we only want to study the behavior of Royal Bengal tiger. So if we only study how the Royal Bengal tiger is working or functioning, that study is known as autoecology. So the species of only a single species, okay, is going to be the autoecology. Whereas in the same, so Sundarbans, okay, we not only study about the Royal Bengal tiger, but we also study about the deer, the rhino, the different, let's say, birds, sparrows, everything combined. That is known as synecology. So in your understanding, only keyword auto, one, syn, many. Auto, one, syn, many. Ecology, the study of the environment, or the study of the interactions between the biotic as well as the abiotic factors in the environment. Okay, and what was environment? Everything that surrounds us. What surrounds us? It is the biotic factors as well as the abiotic factors. अब यही जो abiotic factors हैं, अभी आपको, this will become more branches as we read. This in let's say the producers in food, the producers in terrestrial systems are slightly different. In aquatic systems are slightly different. So for each of them we'll get slightly more detailing. But पहले इतना समझ में आना चाहिए. Till here is everybody clear? सब समझ में आ रहा? Okay? Yeah. एक सेकेंड. हाँ, इकोलॉजी, ठीक है. देखो, इकोलॉजी, एंड यू जस्ट थिंक लॉजी और लोगोस इज व्हाट यू वांट टू स्टडी. What do you want to study? What is the subject of our study? That we want to study the environment. In the environment, we want to study the interactions that are happening. अब कोई भी species है, for example, let's say you have the Royal Bengal tiger. अब Royal Bengal tiger हमारे लिए क्या है? It's an animal. It is a consumer. It will eat, let's say, a deer. वहां पे deer will eat a grass. Okay. So when you study any organism, so you are not just studying about them, but you will study everything about it. So when you study also about the grass here, okay, so then you will also know, bhai, grass ke liye at what time the photosynthesis should happen, what should be the right soil, everything. So when you study this, so ecology is a very diverse, let's say, study, because the moment I say abiotic as well as biotic, इसी में आपकी energy आपकी flow होगी, all the nutrients will also get exchanged. Okay, for example, you have plants. आगे अभी हम देखेंगे, for example, plants have a xylem, plants also have a phloem. Okay, so how the water moves, and after, let's say, sugars are created, how sugar is distributed, food जो है उनका खाने का, तो इस interaction में nutrients कैसे flow हो रहे हैं, Second, ecology also studies if you understand that Royal Bengal tiger को क्या चाहिए खाने के लिए, okay, so you have to have a proper prey base. Royal Bengal tiger is a predator. Predator needs a prey to eat. अगर prey कम होगा तो predator may also get extinct. This is also part of ecology. So when you understand ecology, you not only understand the habitat. ये सारे terms अभी habitat, niche, I'll explain very shortly. You understand where are they living, what they eat, what do you need to conserve them. Okay, and again just think why are these knowledge, why this everything is needed, because again in environment everything is connected. In environment you get a lot of services. For example, chalo isi ko just keep this in mind. Another example I'll give you. We were talking of, and I think I started my class with Delhi's air pollution. आप में से किस किसने पीपल ट्री का सुना है नाम? सभी ने सुना होगा, ठीक है. In the comment section also, how many of you have read about people tree? So people tree has a very unique ability of purifying the air. Okay, just as an example. So at one end, I'm saying if there is a lot of emission that is going on, it is polluting the air. AQI खराब हो रहा है. And people tree has, and not just people, there are also other trees which have the ability to purify the air. Okay, so when you study environment, you will first of all understand everything is related. For example, if you say, अरे if there are certain species of birds that are dying, हमें क्या फर्क पड़ता? But the point is everything is linked. Okay, everything's conservation is also important. That is why we study environment in the first place, because everything matters. Abhi in very, I think 20-30 minutes, I will tell you the functions of an ecosystem, the benefits that they give. Huge benefits are there. For example, let's say if I talk about people tree is also worshipped. So there's a religious or a cultural benefit. It purifies the air, and it's a tree. It will also give you timber. ठीक है, economic use भी हो सकता है उसका, ठीक है. Plus it is also going to support biodiversity. A lot of birds will come and sit on it. उसी के पास आसपास कुछ decomposers होंगे soil में. It is also going to support that bacteria and fungus. So whenever you understand that ecosystem, okay, or that entire part of environment, what is surrounding, so there are complex and multiple interactions that are going on. Everything is studied under ecology. Is that clear? So what is ecology? I think the people who wanted to know, okay, and I'm going to talk about these terms also very shortly. So अभी बस दो चीजें बताई मैंने, what is environment and what is ecology. Okay, I also, while I was explaining, I use a term ecosystem, right? इस term को समझने के लिए I'll also just tell you there is something. Now this is very important. This is known as levels of organization, and this is also known as ecological hierarchy. Okay, now how this hierarchy works, we have an individual which is also known as an organism. Individual, population, community, ecosystem, and this is again a continuation. Biome, and then there is biosphere. ठीक है, अब इसमें I will explain why मैंने यहां पे क्यों ये लिखा है. Between individual and population we have put species. Okay, we'll also understand why, and a very detailed discussion of species will also happen in the third unit also. ठीक है, अब इसमें अगर if we understand this, this is again very crucial to the understanding of environment for us. Okay, I will dictate also, but again if there are examples, I may not give you examples. Examples are there on the spot. All the terms that I've used you, I'll give you definitions, but examples, etc., you can also write them down. Okay, and again the students, you will also get the handwritten notes also, so don't have to worry. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. Now you have an individual, और इसके लिए बहुत सिंपल सा कोई एग्जांपल लेते हैं. आप बताओ आपको कौन सा स्टेट पसंद है, वहां से we'll try to figure out. दिल्ली, और कोई स्टेट पसंद? राजस्थान, चलो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट राजस्थान, क्योंकि दिल्ली तो बहुत ज्यादा एग्जाम्पल हो रहे हैं, वरना दिल्ली विल लिमिट दिल्ली टू पोल्यूशन ओनली. चलो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट राजस्थान. ओके, वन सेकेंड. Any